Hi, everyone. I'm Brandon Taylor for Information Week. And before Forrester's Technology and Innovation Summit North America for 2024 takes place in person and online in Austin, Texas, beginning September the 9th through the 12th, I get the opportunity to connect with Vice President and Principal Analyst Brandon Purcell of Forrester. So welcome, Brandon. Thank you for joining me today. To set the stage a bit, will you tell us about your role and area of focus at Forrester?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for having me, Brandon. It's always great to meet another Brandon. So my name is Brandon Purcell. I'm a vice president and principal analyst at Forrester. I've been at Forrester for 9 years now, and I was hired to cover customer analytics. So all of the different ways of taking massive amounts of customer data and turning it into insights, segmentation, predictive analytics on customer data, lifetime value analysis. So I've done that for 9 years. But also, once we realized AI was going to enjoy the extended summer that it's now in, I started to cover AI and in particular, responsible AI, AI safety, AI alignment, AI governance. And that's become a hot topic over the last few years. And I'm also starting to cover decisions. How do we make better decisions with and without data? So we'll get to talk about that a little bit today as well.
Definitely. Thank you. AI and generative AI, as you mentioned, have dominated headlines and continue to evolve as tools for both innovation and efficiency for the modern enterprise. But because of its unpredictable nature, responsible AI continues to be a critical backdrop to conversations around this technology. So will you explain AI alignment and why that concept is so important today?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, first of all, you're absolutely right. That's one of the things that's most encouraging about this moment that we're in is that until 2022 and the launch of ChatGPT, I had a few inquiries and conversations with clients about responsible AI, mostly financial institutions. But
Right.
once everybody saw this tool and this new almost magical capability, they wanted to do it. But because of the non-deterministic nature that you mentioned, they're a bit scared and they want to make sure they do it responsibly. So that's great to see, is that everybody's trying to get this right. AI alignment, however, is a term that not many of them use, and they probably should be. So when an AI luminary like Sam Altman, for example, or Elon Musk are talking about AI alignment, they're essentially saying, how do we keep super intelligent AI from eradicating the human race? And I'm just a lowly Forrester analyst. I don't concern myself with those questions, but I do think that there's a similar threat to the existence of enterprises, because misaligned AI could actually go off the rails and discount you out of business, or just do things that harm your customers, your brand, put you in the radar sights of regulators. And so it's very important to ensure that AI is aligned. And that basically means, just at a very fundamental level, it does what you want it to do, and it doesn't do what you don't want it to do.
Right. And so you mentioned AI misalignment. And so what are some of the ways that the misalignment of the technology can negatively impact businesses and the customers that they serve?
Sure. Yeah. We're already unfortunately seeing cases of it. So there are three types of AI misalignment, and there are also three types of AI. Until 2022, most of the AI that companies were using was predictive AI, machine learning models that could predict outcomes or classify data. And we saw misalignment there. I mean, Optum Health is a good example of what we would call outer misalignment. Where they wanted to create a predictive model that had a pretty noble function. It was supposed to predict which patients were likely to get sicker, so they could proactively give them the treatments that they needed to keep them from being readmitted to the hospital. But they didn't have an explicit variable about how sick someone was. And so they used a proxy. And the proxy they used was the amount of money spent caring for individuals. Now, unfortunately, because of systemic issues here in the US, more money is spent caring for white patients than Black patients. And so the predictive model picked up on this disparity and exploited it, meaning that it predicted that Black people who needed extra treatment were actually healthy. And so they didn't get the treatment using the model. That's an example of outer misalignment, where what you're trying to optimize and the data point that you're using as the reward function, there's a distance there. And as the machine learning system optimizes, that distance actually gets greater. And that's a real problem.
Right.
The second type of misalignment is user misalignment, where a user can, because they have their own nefarious purposes or just their own goals that are at odds with your own, can actually pull the system away from its intended purpose. And the most famous example of this currently is, you may have seen, Brandon, that a Chevy dealership in Watsonville, California was using a ChatGPT-based chatbot to interface with customers. And one of the customers tricked the chatbot into offering him a fully loaded Chevy Tahoe, and to say it was legally binding, and even use the legal terminology, no takesies backsies. So you can see, if you don't have appropriate guardrails, like, customers could trick these things into getting products for free, and you could discount your way out of business. Right. The third type of misalignment we haven't seen too much of in the wild, because it's really tied to the next evolution of AI. Right now, we're in the generative AI era. Next, we'll see more agentic systems where AI can take more action autonomously and figure out an optimal path forward. And inner misalignment happens when these systems actually figure out some intermediary step that they want to optimize for, instead of what you're intending them to optimize for. And so the classic example is, if you train an AI system to navigate a maze over and over, but the exit is always on the top right, if you change the maze and the exit is no longer there, let's say it's on the bottom right, it's still going to go towards the top right corner. So it's not actually going to fulfill what you'd like it to.
So how does Align by Design add attention to detail throughout an AI model's development process?
Yeah, well, of course, Align by Design is based on privacy by design, and its principles of, proactively thinking about privacy, or in this case, alignment, before you even start to develop the system, making sure alignment permeates every step of the AI development life cycle. And it's important for a number of reasons. One is, at the organizational level. Once AI becomes, more powerful, we give it more autonomy and it starts optimizing. One of the things that we found in our research is that if you tell it to optimize one specific, let's say, metric or KPI, it might cannibalize other things that you really care about. And so internally as an organization, you have to understand, all right, what are we really trying to optimize, and what sorts of trade-offs are we okay with? So there's an organizational discussion that needs to happen around alignment. There's also the tools and techniques. And that's what I'll talk about at the summit. Things like reinforcement learning with human feedback, the different gates that you can put on the input of a prompt to ensure that someone's not trying to say jailbreak your model, and also on the output to protect against any sort of harmful content that might harm a user or your organization. So we'll talk about Align by Design in the context of aligning organizationally, and also aligning the actual technical model itself.
Awesome. And so data-driven decision-making is at the core of our business here at Informa, as well as Information Week. The depth of every business decision at scale can have serious implications, not only for the customers, but also the employees that are involved. So what are some of the strategies to master decision-making that can drive analytical impact?
Yeah, well, data-driven decision-making is, I've heard that term for so long, and so many companies still struggle with it. At first, I think the market in general thought, if we just get the data together, then we'll make better decisions. But of course that didn't work. And then this term insights-driven decision-making kind of took hold. Okay, well, maybe if we can refine the data with analytics and create insights, a lot of what I cover in customer analytics, then we give those insights to business users, they'll make better decisions. But that's not really happening. And it's because people don't take the actual decision point seriously as a discipline. They think, okay, yeah, we'll have all the data and we'll make the right decision. No, how do you actually use that, let's say, predictive insight, or that anomaly, or that trend to make a critical business decision? And sometimes that decision is going to be a decision you make one time. Sometimes you're going to get multiple at-bats to make the decision. Sometimes you're going to have time to make it. Sometimes you have to make it immediately. So the right way to make a decision really depends on the shape of that decision-making environment. And so that's what we're going to talk about at Technology and Innovation. First of all, how to actually understand your decision-making environment, and then point people to the right decision-making framework for that environment. For example, in the world of machine learning, a lot of companies use decision trees, and decision trees are one way of making decisions. If this happens, then go here. If this happens, go here, and that can work really well. And those can be built either by humans using heuristics, or the decision tree could actually learn from data from machine learning. That works really well, and you can automate that in rules. But then when you have more time and you want to drive a more consensus-driven decision-making process, there's some really fun ways of doing that. One is called the 6 hats, where you get everybody in a room and you do 6 rounds of decision-making. You put on different hats for each one. Like one time you put on a really optimistic hat. Like if the best case scenario happens, here's what the decision should be. Of course, there's a pessimistic one. There's an analytical one. So what we're going to try to do is point people to the right decision-making framework for the different contexts of their decisions.
So we touched on a little bit on responsible AI, and then obviously data-driven decision-making and how much data goes into training these models, and how much data that every business is sifting through today to be able to have it impact their business in the most positive way. But AI models also make important decisions based on the data that they are trained on. So will you detail the importance of AI explainability?
Yeah, absolutely. So AI explainability has been an issue since predictive AI, because certain AI algorithms, when they produce models, those models are opaque, and neural networks are an example of that, specifically deep neural networks. So in the world of predictive AI, actually, there are techniques to understand or interpret how that neural network is working. I don't want to say AI explainability has been solved in predictive AI, but there are really good tried and true techniques that data scientists are using. Enter generative AI, where you have these massive models that defy explanation. How do you actually improve explainability of these models? Well, right now you can't. Researchers are definitely working on peering into those models, but instead you need to have traceability of the entire system that uses the large language models. Large language models are usually part of some larger AI system that may be interfacing with a customer or an employee. And so there needs to be traceability of all of the inputs and the outputs as they go through the various components of that system, including the large language model. And then with agentic AI, it's going to become even more challenging, where you have AI agents, as I mentioned before, acting autonomously. There you need to have more reproducibility. How can you actually reproduce how these decisions were made and actions taken over time? So there are different flavors of explainability for different flavors of artificial intelligence, all very necessary for doing 2 things. One, ensuring that AI is working properly, and 2, ensuring that we trust the AI systems enough to use them. I mean, one of the biggest challenges to AI that we found is this trust gap. Why would I trust this system when I don't understand how it's working, how it's deriving this answer that I'm supposed to use to make a very critical decision that's going to impact my customers, my brand, and ultimately my livelihood? We need to build that trust, and explainability is the answer to that.
Thank you. Very well said. And so Brandon, you'll be speaking at Forrester's Technology and Innovation Summit North America 2024, as we both mentioned. And you kind of touched on it a little bit in your answers here today, but what can attendees expect from your presentation coming up next month?
Well, I don't want to give away too much, because I want you to come. Please join us. I look forward to meeting you there in Austin. It's going to be an awesome event. And I'll just say, for the keynote I'm doing on Align by Design, I do like to have some fun with my keynotes and make them entertaining, especially with something like this, where I get into the technical stuff. It can be a little dry. So I'd like to make it entertaining. I've had a lot of fun creating the presentation. I hope it resonates with folks there. I have a feeling it will. And, Brandon, I'm also looking forward to seeing all of my brilliant colleagues present. I love going to these events to see my other colleagues, and there's going to be a really nice through line through all of the keynotes on the main stage, where we're opening up, talking about how we're at a point where we can actually ask better questions at scale of data and fill people's curiosity in the moment. And then we're going to be talking about high performance IT and how to align your IT organization. Then I talk about organizational and technical AI alignment. So hopefully attendees will find that we're telling a very compelling and succinct story around the importance of alignment, both organizationally and technically.
And we're all looking forward to seeing your keynote presentation, as well as the overall event next month in Austin, Texas, and online. Again, Forrester's Technology and Innovation Summit North America 2024. I'm Brandon Taylor for Information Week, and this has been an interview with Vice President and Principal Analyst Brandon Purcell of Forrester. Brandon, thank you for your time today.
Thanks for having me.